In this episode of Voice of the Sea, we're on Maui, learning about how the county is working to manage the extreme number of feral cats, which can pose threats to human and marine mammal health because of parasites shed in cat feces. Cats also prey on native birds, from the nearshore wetlands to the high forests, killing critically endangered birds and pushing them to extinction. We talked to representatives from Maui County, the Maui Nui Seabird Recovery Project, Maui Humane Society, the Good Cat Network, and the Division of Aquatic Resources, all working to reduce the number of feral cats, rebuild native bird populations, and restore the resilience of Maui's environment. We start off talking to Mayor Michael Victorino at Kehau Pond.
Cats are a wonderful animal. I've had them, I've grown up with them. However, feral cats have now become a real challenge in our communities all over. First of all, our natural habitats like this wetlands is being challenged because feral cats like to chase birds. Secondly, they leave their feces, which then causes other challenges with other species that are endangered, like our monk seal. So this is so important that we as a community learn to be responsible pet owners. If you're going to have an animal, take care of it, spade it, so that you don't have more reproduction. Especially when, more feral cats are being released in the public because of the economic times. People were getting rid of their animals. That's not a responsible pet owner. Take them to the Humane Society. We'll find a home for them. Everything in our ecosystem has a balance. And when one part of the ecosystem is unbalanced, it hurts our environment. We have to get that balance back because we exist in a coexisting world. The county has had programs that we put money towards to help. The traps and other things you see here, putting money for spading, that's our part, that's our contribution. The rest, really, I ask everybody to come together. We have the largest number of endangered species in the whole world right here in Hawaii, and Maui is no different, so it's all up to us.
Next, we're talking to Jay Penniman, the project manager for Maui Nui Seabird Recovery Project.
So we are in Kehau Ponds. We're on the north shore of Maui, just outside of Kahului, and we have 3 endangered native birds that live here. There's the a'eo, the black-necked stilt. There's the Alai keokeo, the Hawaiian coot, and there's the koloa, the Hawaiian duck.
So talk to me a little bit about what you do with the Maui Nui Seabird Recovery Project.
Our goal and our mission is to restore populations that used to be the most numerous birds in the islands. The endangered uwa'u, the Hawaiian petrel, was found in the subfossil record, and the researchers found that there were so many remains. They calculated that at night, when the birds came back to their breeding areas, they would have darkened the skies so much you couldn't see the stars. And they nested from the mountaintops to the beaches. And from the time the Hawaiians arrived and then accelerated when the Europeans arrived, the habitat change that went on removed them from the area. They were used as food, and agriculture eliminated the nesting habitat for these birds. So now the only populations we have are in the extreme high area of Haleakala. On top of Lanai is the second largest population, and then in the forests up at 3,000 to 7,000 feet, they're there. They're also on Kauai still, and there's a few birds left on the Big Island. But in all of these areas, people who have jobs like mine are trying to rebuild those populations.
So the main things it sounds like for restoring the seabird colony is to help bring the habitat back with the native plants, and then to remove the introduced predators, the mongoose and the cats.
That's correct. And the cats and the mongoose are the biggest problem all over, but up in the mountains, in the forested areas, there's also pigs and goats, and they also predate on the seabirds that are there. So it's all of these introduced mammals. Hawaii back in the day, there were 2 mammals. There was the Hawaiian bat and there was the Hawaiian monk seal, and that was it. Cats don't belong out freely roaming on the environment. If we could regulate cats like dogs, we would be far ahead. We don't allow dogs to run free. Every jurisdiction has leash laws that says you have to have your dog on a leash when you're out, unless you go to a dog park, and we could build cat parks. You know, it's possible to do these things. We just have to think creatively. So if every cat is owned, people are taught to keep their cats indoors, then that will accelerate the reduction of the problem.
Why do you love seabirds?
Oh, seabirds are wonderful. They provide such benefits to the land, to our whole life. The Hawaiians who traveled here used them as one of their travel aids. And the fishing people today, they go to where seabird flocks are because they know that there where the small bait fish that the seabirds are feeding on are being pushed to the surface by the aku and the ahi, the big fish that the fishermen people want to catch for us. Seabirds are the marine engineers. They are moving marine nutrients to the terrestrial habitats and the nearshore coral reef habitat. The nitrogen and the phosphorus that they bring is the kind of nitrogen and phosphorus that our mountains need for our native plants up there, that the coral reef community, all of it benefits from this type. It's very different from the agricultural nitrogen, which is a real problem for coral reef areas. With sea level rise, building the resiliency of our coral reef communities is vitally important. The coral reef communities protect the islands from the brutal wave action that will come in and erode the coastlines faster and faster unless we maintain those coral reef communities.
So when we talk about protecting our native seabirds, then we're actually talking about building resiliency and helping the ecosystem to be strong and be able to, be strong in the face of climate change.
Exactly, that's what it does. It builds that capacity for resilience. They were here before any people got here, before the plants even got here. They came and those marine nutrients mixed with the lava soil to form the soil that all of our plant community evolved in. And that's what our agriculture has been built on. That's what all of our forests and all the native plants that are unique to Hawaii, they all grew out of seabird-derived nutrients. And we need to bring them back so that we can continue.
Good job. Great. We're using that.
That was nice.
The University of Hawaii's Sea Grant College program focused on Hawaii's coasts and its communities through sustainable development, safe seafood supply, sustainable coastal tourism, hazard resilience, and healthy coastal ecosystems. Hawaii's Sea Grant.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're on Maui at Kamaole 3 Beach Park, talking with Jenni Learned from the Maui Nui Seabird Recovery Project. We check out the nesting ua'ukani, whose population is recovering due to habitat restoration, fencing, and trapping of cats and mongoose in the area.
We've been monitoring this colony as part of the whole Maui population for several years, and recently we've started to do habitat restoration as well as control predators in the area to help the birds and keep their population stable. The ua'ukani spend most of their lives at sea. They are seabirds, so they return to land only to breed. Once they fledge the colony as juveniles, they will go out to sea and spend about 5 or 6 years just feeding and remaining on the open ocean, and then they return to the colony usually from which they had fledged. They do that in the springtime and find their burrows and find their mates. After finding their successful mate, they will lay an egg and then continue to breed that chick until it is ready to fledge in the fall.
And about how long do they live?
Estimates are, over several decades. So we have banding data from birds that we have banded in early 2000s that are still returning to their home colony to breed every year. So at least 20 years. Molokini Islet, which is right offshore, has a very dense colony of uaukani, and when those birds return as young teenager birds looking for a burrow, if there's no room over there, they're likely to come right here, right across the channel, which we see in the banding data. This is a really important spot for migration of those uaukani that need a location to nest. Looking at the whole ecosystem and these issues where it can be very controversial, well, it really helps us step away from what is right and what is wrong and instead considers the entire system, and that works for the benefit of everyone and everything involved. I think that's really when we're going to get success in terms of restoring our native habitats and our native species.
I see there's also this path now and the fencing to keep people on the path.
Right. We still want people to use the park and also to understand that where they are is somewhere special. They're right here next to the birds and in the colony. We just want to bring awareness to the fact that the burrows are fragile.
You mentioned the predators. So what are the predators of the birds or the chicks?
The most common predators in these seashore colonies are Indian mongoose, which are non-native, and then feral cats, which are also not part of the native ecosystem.
And how do you keep the predators out of this area?
We have live traps, and we have staff members that come and check the traps daily. Especially before we started removing a lot of the dense non-native grasses, it was very common to find scavenged carcasses of uaukani every time we would visit this colony. At one point, I think the maximum number we found was 23 birds in one visit. 23 carcasses. You know that they have spent this whole year out at sea feeding, getting ready to breed, and then they come back, and to find them like that is very disheartening. But also then I take, as the data manager, I take the band data from those dead uaukani and track the history. So especially when you see that they've been returning here for 10 years or so, and you see they're successful fledged chicks, and then after all that time to be taken by a non-native predator is really hard. When we noticed that the numbers were declining, so we were finding carcasses of adults that had been predated, or we just noticed trampling of the burrows from people using the park. And once we started actions to protect them, then the numbers responded really well. So for example, one year we only had one chick that we banded, and then we went in and removed some of the non-native grasses, which helped us better remove the predators or removed hiding spaces for the predators. And then the following year we had 43 chicks that we banded, and the following year after that it's over 100, and now it continues to climb. So they respond really well to just a little bit of management and consideration of the whole ecosystem. So, yeah. Oh, it looks like there's a pair in here. Yeah, there's 2 adults in here. It's an endoscope. It's used, I think plumbers use them a lot, but they work really well for the burrows. And some of the burrows can be, several meters deep. So having the ability to really get back in there and search for the eggs helps us calculate really accurate reproductive success. Since the nature of the uaukani is that they're phylopatric, so meaning they will return year after year to the same burrow, they will always come back and try. But if there's disturbance, or if their egg is unsuccessful, or if their chick is removed from the burrow, they only do one reproductive event per year. So if something happens to that egg or that chick, the adults will leave for that year. In those years when we would come to do the chick banding and not find any chicks, that means that hundreds of chicks that year were removed from their burrows and eaten by either mongoose or feral cats. I feel very inspired by the fact that we're able to reach a lot of people when we do the work in a public place like this. We have a lot of volunteers that have helped us with removing the non-native plants and helping us do outplanting of the native species, and they return, time and time again to help us with those activities. And And then also the younger generations that become involved. We have children from grade schools up to interns from high schools and colleges that really become very much involved in what we do and create their own projects and are interested in maintaining, not only restoration but also research in these habitats. And so I always feel hopeful, when we have especially the younger people getting involved.
We are looking for a few heroes, mentors, trailblazers, innovators, a passion to change lives, spark curiosity, open hearts, and awaken minds, help students answer the question, who am I? This could be your calling, but this is no job. It's the journey of a lifetime. Be a hero. Be a teacher.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're talking about solutions to Maui's feral cat problem and the need to protect and restore native Hawaiian wildlife like birds and monk seals. We start off talking to Emily Drose, the Humane Enforcement Resource Officer at Maui Humane Society.
My current role is a Humane Enforcement Resource Officer. It's a softer officer. I'm more a direct link to the community, and I'm a direct support to our current community cat coordinator. And before I became an officer, I was actually our state's first community cat coordinator.
Can you just talk to me a little bit about why cats on the landscape here in Maui, across Hawaii, is an issue that we're dealing with? We're making this episode about it.
Yes, it's a lot to unpack, so I'll try not to overwhelm you. But this goes back to the days of colonization in Hawaii. Cats came here on the boats of colonizers. The cat's job then was to control rats, because rats would bring a lot of disease to the men on the ships. And Hawaii in particular, we don't have natural predators. We don't have harsh winters. We have just the perfect setup for these free-roaming animals to just thrive.
And I understand too that there's an issue with people abandoning cats.
Huge issue. I just got chicken skin, as you mentioned it. The general public doesn't want to see an animal harmed. So because we were known as the place you just bring cats to kill them, basically, it almost became socially acceptable to say, I'm going to take this cat and place it here because I'm not killing it.
Can you tell me, what does TNR stand for?
Yes, so it's an acronym for Trap, Neuter, Release. You may also hear different acronyms like SNR, which is like Shelter, Neuter, Release. It all essentially means that free-roaming cats are trapped with the purpose to have them brought in for spay, neuter, and returned to their general area when it's deemed appropriate for population control. We don't encourage people to feed or do TNR in areas where we do have federally protected wildlife. And I would actually encourage my colleagues in conservation to reach out to me if that is happening.
You mentioned an ear tip as a way to recognize a cat that's been spayed or neutered. Yes. And tell me what this ear tipping is.
Yes, so when the cats are brought in for surgery, when they get their microchip implanted, when surgery is done, they get an ear tip. And generally the ear tip is to indicate to the public this cat is cared for, it's been sterilized, leave it alone. We want the cats with those nice pointy ears to come in. Ear tip cats we don't want to see unless they're not doing well. Since implementing our TNR program in the past couple years, we're actually starting to see the shift where it go down. Because at one point you couldn't go anywhere on Maui without seeing real crusty looking cats, like horrible looking cats. We're actually bringing in DC cat counts to actually do a competent audit and count of all the cats on our island, how many are intact, how many are not, where we need to focus our trap neuter, because right now we're just throwing a wide blanket. COVID kind of messed everybody up a little bit in that, because we did shut down for spay neuter for a couple months. That alone was just so eye-opening to see how important it is to continue to do spay neuter, because just the 4 months that we stopped, there was a big explosion.
Next, we catch up with Darlene Rayhill, co-founder of the Good Cat Network, to learn how their work, Operation Aloha Cat, is not only removing feral cats from the landscape on Maui, but also providing pets for people living in colder climates.
Our primary program that we started is called Operation Aloha Cat, and what we do is we fly adoptable cats off island to Seattle, and amazingly these cats get adopted within like 4 days. It's amazing to think that there's a place where there's a shortage of cats when we have so many here, and we've negotiated a very special rate and we're able to fly out cats. It's amazing. It's an amazing partnership and we are so unbelievably grateful for that. And it kind of started when the pandemic happened. The Maui Humane Society had to stop all the spay and neuter services, which really led to a cat explosion here on Maui. Plus all of the other issues like food shortages and housing issues where people are needing to leave the island and don't know where to take their pets, can't find housing. I think we've sent out about 200 something. We've only been working since November of last year. Of course, plans to increase, expand, get more airlines on board possibly, get more fosters on board to prepare these cats for flight. That would all increase those numbers. If we can focus on trying to find that common ground and agreeing on solutions, then it would take us out of the arguing and more in that conversation and for real change.
Next, Kehau Kimokeo with the Protected Species Program of the Hawaii Division of Aquatic Resources.
Native species, they're so special, and they've adapted and changed to be these special things. And we as Native Hawaiians want to protect our native species. Those are our native resources. And I think it's really important that we put all our efforts into saving our native species because they can't be found anywhere else in the world.
Can you talk to me about the role that cats play?
Even though you think of a cat as a land animal, and I directly work with marine animals, there is a direct connection. One of the concerns about cats is not just the bird species that they could affect or what other species here we have that are native and endangered. Sometimes it has a lot to do with our species in the ocean, and that's because of runoff and different things happening on the land, and then cat colonies. The concern is they have a very specific disease that affects Hawaiian monk seals. And so not only are they a predator to like little chicks that are beautiful, but they also provide this disease into the ocean that actually has killed off about 12 of our Hawaiian monk seals. And so the population is super small. To lose 12 of them from one disease, Toxoplasmosis gondii, what happens is that is transferred through their feces into the ocean, and when it's transferred into the ocean, the Hawaiian monk seal can get it. I think it's important as local people, as Hawaiians, as non-Hawaiians, to remember your own connection to Aina or land or the water, and using that spiritual sometimes connection to remind you of your different kuleana, not just working all the time or the other things that distract us, but look into what grounds us and contributing to something that you love. If it's the beach, how can we help the kai? How can we help the people that are supporting this by volunteering or doing other actions that really will contribute to our aina, to the health of this place?
Volunteer to help. Count birds, install fences, trap cats and mongoose, or monitor cat colonies. Learn more at voiceofthesea.org. Follow us on social media at Voice of the Sea TV. Mahalo for watching Voice of the Sea. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.